Hola, hola, amigas. Welcome again to Modern Latina in Midlife. Excited that you're here. Thank you for coming back and listening every time. For those of you who are new here, I am your host, Sonia Flores, transformation coach, intuitive advisor, and energy healer. And today's episode is actually an interview that I did with my coach and mentor and now friend, Jessica Rachel. She invited me on her podcast to share my story of how, when I started to follow the advice and the messages that my spirit guides were giving me, that they were guiding me towards, how all the gates just opened up, all the gates of opportunities and all the steps that I took to land to where I am at today, which is like the most authentic place and that I have ever been. So she invited me to share this story, and I realized when I finished sharing the story, when the episode was done, when we were done recording, I realized that I had never shared my story fully on the podcast. And I mentioned little bits and pieces of it here and there, but I've never shared that whole story. And I thought, oh, I'm going to record this episode again for my podcast. And then I thought, you know what? Why don't I just share the recording that she did? That way, she's kind of interviewing me and she's pulling out the information from me. So, this is the actual recording that she published on her podcast episode. I'm resharing it here to share my story with you. And just really how, what I want to highlight here is yes, share my story so that you can get to know me better as well. But really, B is to really highly encourage you to follow your nudges, your intuition, the messages that your highest self is sending you, that your spirit guides are sending you, to start to look for those signs and pieces of information and to not doubt them, to truly believe in them, that your spirit guides are really with you, guiding you every step of the way, and to start following those breadcrumbs one at a time. And here's the thing about our spirit guides, they don't usually give us the full picture of what our whole plan is. Usually, they will give us the next step and the next step, one step at a time. Sometimes they will lay out the plan, but most of the times they will give you a big bird's eye overview of like what the big picture is going to be, and then the little steps and plans from A to Z are dropped to you one at a time, one inspired action at a time. I think it's also, in the 3D world that we live in today, we want the whole plan laid out for us, right? That's how many things work. If you follow this, you will get here, especially when we're talking about the educational system. When you're going to college, I mean, before I even applied to college, I knew exactly every single class I had to take and when for the next 4 years to like get that degree. That's how we're trained. That's how we live our life. That is not how our intuition necessarily works. And that's most definitely not how your spirit guides are laying out the plan for you. They're dropping hints and nudges one at a time for the next inspired action, one step at a time. So really that's what I want to share this story with, is yes, to get to know me, but also to see what is possible for you. Just give you an example of this is what happens when you start to follow your intuition and those nudges and the signs and the coincidences, which do not exist. The word itself, coincidence, says coincide. Everything is coinciding for you for a reason. So I'm so glad you landed on here today to listen to this podcast episode, because this is the exact message that you need to hear today. Yeah, you. I'm talking to you right now, thinking, I know you're thinking, oh my gosh, I get all these signs. I don't know if to trust them. I heard the song and I thought it was speaking to me, or I saw, 1111, or I got this sign from the universe, or so and so. I spoke to three people and they were all talking about the same book. When you get little things like these, little quote unquote coincidences, it is your spirit guides guiding you in that direction. Like, this is for you. You're supposed to do this. You cannot continue to ignore it. So, I'm super excited to share this with you. I hope that you get something really super valuable out of this. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Intuition Activation Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica, a spiritual medium and intuitive coach, and I'm so excited that you're here to join me for this intuitive development journey. Guys, I have another really special guest and really special episode for you this week. Many of you may remember that before I went on break in December, I put out a little blast or a little announcement on the podcast that I would really love to have some of my former clients come and share what their spirit guide shared with them in a session with me and how that has played out for them. And I had several people reach out to me, and this episode is just the first of many people who have reached out and are willing to share sort of what their spiritual guidance session was like for them, and more importantly, what their guides channeled and how it has actually come to fruition, how they made it happen, how they listened to their guides, and how they're living their truly aligned life. And that is why I'm so excited to introduce to you the beautiful Sonia Flores. I'm saying that wrong, Flores. I do not have a good Spanish accent. But Sonia is so beautiful. She is actually the beauty and the brains behind this podcast. I met her, well, initially I met her as a client, but then I found out that she was able to help me launch this podcast. And so we've been working together ever since. But Sonia is also an incredibly intuitive woman. And we discovered this or started to kind of go on this journey together when she had her initial spiritual guidance session with me and we channeled her guides. And this is something that's gone back for lifetimes with her. And it's really coming into fruition and full force in this lifetime for her. And she's really learning to reconcile that from things that have happened in her past life. And we're definitely going to talk about all of that in today's episode. Sonia is an amazing coach, and she really does work to help coach women in starting their intuitive, heart centered, soul centered businesses. And she has helped me do that. And I'm excited for her to share that. And she is really going to talk a lot about this beautiful program that she has created. But what I'm so excited about, and really it was a co creation because it was her guides who really told her that she needed to start this program, this coaching business that she is now doing. And what I'm so excited about is that after Sonia and I recorded this episode, I asked her if she would come and speak in the Intuition Activation community, so our private Facebook community, and she has agreed. So she is going to be coming and doing a workshop for us in there, and it's going to be all about sort of how to even think about or start considering what your own intuitive business might look like. If you're not sure what your heart centered, soul centered business is going to be, if you think you want to start a business, maybe you're stuck in a job that you don't like and you know you want to do something a little bit more heart centered, a little bit more soul centered, maybe a little bit intuitive or in the intuitive arts or in the healing side of things. Sonia is going to do a whole workshop helping us sort of tap into what our true soul aligned business is needing to be. And she has so many beautiful tools and ways of helping you figure that out and bring that through, followed through with practical ways of kind of stepping into to that business and what comes through when you do channel it and when the messages come through. So I'm really excited to have her come and join us in the community. So if you like what you hear on this episode and you haven't already joined our Intuition Activation community, definitely make sure to check the link in the show notes and come and join us, guys. It's not expensive. It's only $36 a month. And there's so much going on in there. By the time this episode comes out, we will have already had several of our group meditations and intuitive activations. And we have some beautiful workshops on the books. Indra is going to be coming in there and teaching us a little bit about energy healing. Kristen Dorian, who you heard on the podcast is going to be coming in there and teaching us a little bit about quantum healing and channel and her ways of activating intuition. So she has a whole new take on developing your intuition, and she's going to bring forward some of those beautiful tips and tricks. So guys, there's a lot going on in there. There's some resources that I've been providing for the members in there, and guys, just so much fun stuff. So if you are ready to dive into your intuitive abilities, to find a corner of the internet where everybody gets it and is on the same path as you, and you just need some people to practice on or to trust, or help you begin to trust your intuitive downloads, come and join us in the intuition activation community. It's going to be so beautiful. And that being said, I am so excited to introduce you to Sonia and to have her on the show. She's really such an incredible intuitive and just a beautiful example of what it looks like when you really start to follow those little whispers that your spirit guides send your way, and how this can grow and transform as you start to listen and take action on the things that your guides say. So I can't wait for you to hear this episode, and I'll see you guys on the other side. Have a great one. Welcome, Sonia, to the Intuition Activation Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here too. I've really been looking forward to this. So thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Yeah. And guys, I really am so excited to introduce Sonia to you because not only has she is she an incredible intuitive, incredible channeler, an incredible energy healer. She's been in some of my programs, or she's been in my 12-week program, but she's also the beauty and the brains behind this podcast.
Thank you. That's how we met.
So this podcast only runs because Sonia's the one putting it out there for us. So she definitely is a big part of this operation. And I'm so excited to have you be a part of, or to have you part of this journey, because really nothing would happen if it wasn't for your
Oh,
expertise. So
oh, thank you. We're connected in so many ways. So that's what's really beautiful.
yeah. So the reason that I have you here on the podcast is because I had put out a little bit of a call to previous clients before I went on break in December, asking anybody if you had had a session with me and your guides sort of brought information through that maybe you weren't expecting, or that they were just giving you some authentic path and purpose information, and if that information has since played out, and you so graciously reached out and said, you know what, like you and I have had 2 channeling sessions together, if you don't include the 12-week program. And you kind of said, hey, like a lot of the stuff has played out for me. So before we kind of go there and we kind of dive into what it was that we did in our session and what your guides brought through, I would love for you to just share with us a little bit about sort of what you do now and where you're at. And then we'll rewind and talk about where you were before. But what's sort of in the works for you right now? What are you doing these days?
Mm, Thank you. Oh, I'm so excited to talk about this because this is, if you had asked me a year ago or even 2 years ago, I was in such a different place. But where I'm at now is that I started a coaching business, and that's kind of the process of where I met you, was going through the coaching program, and so many people were using your services, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go get this channeling experience thing. But so what I'm doing now, which has all been divinely guided, is I work with women. I help women. I love to say that I help women, unlock and unblock the parts of them, and remove the layers that have been keeping them stuck. The layers of like the mother role and the daughter role and all these societal roles, to really find their authenticity, but more so helping them find themselves and know themselves at a soul level, and then to use that soul and that passion to start a business, and then share those gifts even further with the world. So that's kind of where really this has all led me. And in the process of building a 12-week coaching program to help women do just that. Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's in a nutshell, that's what I'm doing right now. So
Yeah. And are you still doing some of your energy healing and sort of like intuitive work on the side, or is that now included in your program?
so that is all has all become a part of my coaching. uh I don't even know what to call it, but
protocol, my coaching method. My coaching includes intuitive guidance. It includes I call in the spirit guides. It includes energy healing. It's all a combination of everything that I've learned in the last 2 years and embraced, because that energy healing piece and that intuitiveness, it's always been there. I was just trying to shove it down and hide it. But having these sessions with you, you're like, nope, you need to be using this. So that's all now a part of what I do. And it's just so beautiful, and it just feels so natural. It feels like that's the way it always was meant to be. So yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I love it because it's such a change that to only have known you for a couple of years and see such a massive shift over such a short period of time. And this is really what I love to sort of push people towards, especially on this podcast, is that when you finally embrace that these are gifts you've had your whole life, right? That it's always been a part of you and you really start to step into that. I mean, when you step into alignment, everything just sort of takes off. It's like you set yourself on the train track and then away you go and you hit your destination so much quicker. And this has really, I think, been the case for you in the unfolding for you. It happened so quickly when you finally sort of surrendered and went, okay, yeah, this is who I am.
Yeah. And that's the key word, surrender, I think, because the very first session I had with you, the first thing that came out of your mouth was, "Oh, you're a healer." And I'm like, "Oh, this is not what I came to you for." It's like, because I was already doing energy healing before that. And I thought, "Oh, people think it's weird." I'm like, "I'm just going to put this away and shove it away and just live like a normal human being." And so you didn't let me do that. You didn't let me hide. You just like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And so it was that surrendering to like, okay, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And now it's just a natural part of like life. And it's so beautiful. And I love it. And my clients love that part of it. I think that that's why my clients come to me, is because it's not just coaching, it's the energy part comes in, and the calling in the spirit guides and getting the intuitive guidance. So it just feels more well-rounded. It just feels more me, really authentically.
Oh, it's so amazing. And I can see like you're in I always tell people like I can when I work with you over time, I'm like your aura shifts too. And like you just glow and radiate like this beautiful healing, loving and grounding energy. And like you can see how it's shifted over time. And so even today we can just see like this beautiful, bright white and blue aura. And it's just like so brilliant. So
Thank
it's so nice to see. But I actually would love to kind of rewind a little bit and actually go back to even before the first time we met, because you mentioned something really important here, which is that you have had inklings towards your intuition well before you and I met, right? And I would even argue possibly before you were, when you were a child even. So I want to go back to sort of your upbringing and sort of your life going like from the beginning. And what did it look like for you? Like, when did intuition come in? Was this a gift you knew you had? Is it something that
you.
you kind of discovered, knew about but shoved down? Like, what did that look like as an unfolding for you?
Yeah. So I grew up, my parents are immigrants from Mexico. So I grew up in a very traditional Mexican Catholic upbringing in LA. I was born and grew up in LA. And it was just very traditional, very, you work hard to get ahead. And there was no, as far as spiritualism went, it was Catholicism, really. It was organized religion, and that was fine. And it's beautiful. That was my upbringing. I am Catholic, and I do love the faith. And I'm just not a practicing Catholic anymore. But there was no talk of intuitiveness. But when things would get really, really tough, um, they would resort back, like, you would hear talk about, like, curanderas and, like, that type of work, which is kind of like energy work. It really, in the way that I would describe it now in Mexico, you have a lot of curanderas, which is really like kind of people like you and I, right? People that do energy work, and witches is what you would call them here, I suppose. Um And so there was talk about that, and it was always so scary, and always there was like it was very hush hush conversation, and I never really knew much about it. But I always had this um like desire to connect with something else. Like I don't know if it was spirit or dead people or what. I would like hear and see things in movies and be like, oh, maybe there's like a radio channel or something where you can like connect to the other side. And I did not know how to look anything up. I did not know to go to the library to look for this type of information. I didn't know if there was anybody to ask, but I had this like desire to connect with others, other beings, other spirits that you couldn't see. I don't know where I got this idea, but I don't think that I ever got any messages or heard anything. I don't know where that desire came from. I don't know if I heard something or felt spirit talk to me and that's where that desire came from. I don't know.
Mm.
But as I grew older and once I already had my kids, a little phenomenon started happening where I would know out of nowhere if like a friend or a cousin or somebody was going to like miscarry their baby, and it was so awful. um and I would know it like if somebody had told me it had happened already, and it hadn't happened yet. But I remember the first time it happened, I was at my friend's house and she was like walking around and I just got like this download, like she's gonna lose her baby. She was pregnant. And I was like,
Oh.
I was so upset with myself, like, why am I having these horrible thoughts? Like, why would I think that? Like, and I went home and I told my husband, I was married at the time, and I said, I had this awful thought. I said, I don't think it's me thinking it. Like, it's a very, very weird thing. And I'm just like really upset at myself for having this thought. Like, why did this thought jump into my head? And like a couple of days later, she told me she had lost a baby. And this happened several times over the years. That's when I knew there's something weird with me. Like, something is up, like, that's when I realized there's something. I have something, but I don't know how to use it for good because I wasn't about to tell anybody,
Yeah.
You're gonna lose your baby." Like, I wasn't about to say that to anybody. So, so that's when I started to kind of realize there was something. The other thing that happened is I was working with a client, um and she's very much into like energy work and stuff like that, but I didn't really know it. But one day in a workshop, she said something about to somebody else. She had like a side conversation with somebody else, and she said something like energy work. We need to do like some energy work around this. And I overheard that, and I thought, what is energy work? And I could not stop obsessing over that. I had never heard that term, energy work, but I was like, "What is that? What did you say? What did you say to that woman? What is energy work? Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I'll talk to you about that some other time after the workshop, blah, blah, blah." And she didn't. And I kept trying to like, what is this thing? What is this energy work thing? And we just never had a chance to have that conversation. I was so obsessed over it. I just finally just started kind of looking up like what is like energy work and things. And I had a conversation with somebody and I said, maybe I'm supposed to do this Reiki thing, because I didn't know where to start or where to go. And she's like, no, she was kind of an intuitive. She's like, no, don't do Reiki. She goes, go look for like these women's circles that do like energy work. I said, okay, that's weird. So I went down a little rabbit hole, and that's how I found the type of energy healing that I learned, that I got certified to do, which was pranic healing. It's similar to Reiki, but it's called pranic healing. And that's when I started to do that, and I did a lot of it for several years. And it's just it was hard for me to talk about it on social media because it just felt so weird. I just felt so judged. Social media, my friends and family are on there and they're like, what the heck is she talking about? And I just felt like I saw the good that it did. And it really made a huge difference in my life, in my son's life. And honestly, I can say that it's one of the things that saved my son's life. So I know the power of it. Um, but I just thought it's just weird. Like, I don't know. I just decided I'm just gonna shove that down, and I'm just gonna focus on being a normal person. And and so yeah, at the time I was so does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah. But then that sort of brings us a little bit more forward to, and it's so funny because as you're talking, I'm starting to, I always tell people like it's a good thing we record our sessions because when I'm channeling, I don't often remember what comes through until I start channeling for you again. And then it all comes flooding back. So
Yeah.
I must be slightly tapped in at the moment because now I'm starting to remember everything that came out in our very first session.
Huh? Yes.
But as you're talking and you're kind of going, there was something in me that wanted to do this, that wanted to connect to it. And do you remember that we channeled in a past life of yours?
Yes.
And right, and there was a lot of past life history there that maybe is
Mm,
why you had this urge
yes.
or this nudge towards this because there was
Yes.
some unfinished business for your soul, I think. And so I think that it's not a coincidence that those buzzwords came into your life, that you had these urges and that you heard it and and you followed the curiosity. But I think that whether you would have, no matter how often or how many times you tried to suppress it, just given your past life, I think that it would have kept coming to the surface somehow. So, do you want to share with us a little bit, if you remember the details? The very first time we met, I believe it was 2 years ago already, or
It was
almost.
July. I'll remember it was either July 3rd or July 7th, 2023.
Wow, that's very specific. You really
I
remember?
Yep. I
Okay.
was looking forward to that appointment, to that session. I couldn't wait. So yes, I remember.
Okay, amazing, amazing. And so, do you remember what came through in that session? Because I
Mm,
do remember that the first thing we said was, "Oh my gosh, you're a healer." But then I think we went right into a past life of yours that
mhm.
was like, this
Yeah.
is why. Do you want to share some of that? What
Yeah.
came through?
Oh gosh, yes. Thank you so much for bringing that in. I hadn't put two and two together the way you just did, of why I had that nudge in me from a very young age. You just answered that for me. So thank you so much. It's so beautiful. It makes me emotional.
Aw.
So yeah, that's very beautiful. And it goes back to what came up in that first session. Um, what came up was this imposter syndrome that I've been living with in this lifetime. And so you said, okay, let's somehow we ended up in a past life. And in that past life, then we saw that I was a medicine woman in this like native tribe, if you will. And I was the medicine woman that taught like all the younger women, all the younger girls to be medicine women, to be of service and to do what I do. And I was very good at it. And I was the head, medicine woman in this village. And and then I had a traumatic event in that lifetime, and it was that my own daughter passed away very young. And at that point is where I started doubting myself and my abilities, because I was like, okay, I can heal so many people. I'm so good at what I do, but I can't even save my own daughter. I'm a fraud. Like this is an instance. So that's where the imposter syndrome came in for me. And then that has followed me through all the lifetimes up until this lifetime. And so we healed that, and that was really, really emotional. And I watch that recording every once in a while, and I still cry. I sobbed, and I feel that coming up now. And but we went in there and we healed that, and that's when you told me this is a lifetime where you heal that imposter syndrome. But that's also when you told me you've been a healer many, many lifetimes in different ways, right? Like as a medicine woman, as a doctor, as a surgeon, in many different ways, that I've come back to be this healer type of
Mhm.
person in many, many different lifetimes. So
Mhm. And if I stand
Yeah.
corrected, I don't know if I remember correctly, but wasn't the daughter who passed away in that life now your son in this life? Wasn't that?
I think that yes, I think that came through
Oh, in a
in a
different
different
session.
sessions. It
Okay.
didn't come through in that one, but I do remember that now, that there
Mhm.
is a connection, and when I say that the energy work, I feel saved my son in this lifetime, that makes sense, and you said that this is not gonna happen again. So
Mhm.
that was very also, it's just it's just amazing work, to work with you and be able to have that type of healing and that type of like everything makes sense now, like everything connects, so but yeah, that we did discover that my son in this lifetime was that daughter in that.
Yeah. And so then that comes full circle when we talk about sort of with past lives kind of leaving us with some unfinished business, right? And that typically usually becomes part of our path and our purpose and our mission in this life. And so in that life where you sort of felt like I may have failed my child because I couldn't save them, but forward to embracing your and then shutting down your gifts, forward to this life where you have to relearn to embrace your gifts and then use that to save your child, right? And stop them. I mean, like, tell me that's not you just like checking off the boxes and fulfilling your
Oh my
purpose.
gosh, that is so beautiful. When you put it that way, when you put that in words, it's wow, it's beautiful. Yeah.
So, if that's not an indication of you just being so aligned in this lifetime, I mean, nothing else
Mm.
can
Yeah, you're
really
right.
top that,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah,
so
you would think, but there's still so much more. That's what's beautiful.
yeah, and that also is the thing when we're especially with, like, old souls who've had many lifetimes, right? We kind of have to, like, we have to say salve and or I guess, finish loose ends from a lot of previous
Mm.
lives as we near the ends of our incarnations as a person, and so then, the older of a soul you are, sometimes the more work you have to do, right? There's a
Mhm, I
lot of
feel
loose ends that need to kind of come through, and so,
yeah.
that's where I find that sometimes in these sessions, it becomes really important that we dive into some of your past lives because ultimately the majority of people are coming to talk to their guides because they want to know what their path and purpose, and it's always usually it's sort of like because you have unresolved things, right? Whether it's trauma or healing or whatever, and we need to resolve it so that you can feel and come home and come back into alignment, come back to yourself, and you really are just embodying that so much, so
Mm,
it's so gorgeous.
very nice. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, 100% I agree. Our soul path and purpose answer lies in the unfinished business that we have, whether it's from this lifetime, but really it's usually something that stems from even the past lifetime. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's fast forward a little bit. I mean, is there anything else from that first session that we had a couple years ago that was surprising to you or that maybe has played out or that you wanted to mention? Otherwise, I know that we're definitely going to focus on our most recent session, but just
Yeah.
anything else in that one?
The other thing that came out of that, that was really interesting that I was kind of still in denial about, or it took me a while to really come to, is that you told me that I would be using, the energy healing and intuitiveness in my coaching sessions. And the one thing that you did mention that in that session, that first session, is you're going to be actually using it to help people, women, start their own businesses. And I just thought, okay, this is way different than the coach I thought I was going to be, because that's what I went to you for. Like, okay, I'm in this coaching program. What kind of a coach am I going to be? What are my offerings? And you're like, you're going to help women, start a business. And it's probably more of a spiritual type business. It could be more of a, maybe I don't know, any kind of spiritual type business. And I thought, this is so weird and off. I was like, "What?" I'm like, "This just puts a wrench in my plans of being a normal person." So you mentioned that time, and I just thought, "Okay, maybe it'll morph into that one day," but right now, it just felt like a lot in that moment, and, but yeah, I did wanna mention that you said that from that very first session.
Yeah, so interesting. And it's so cool because and I tell this to all of my clients, especially the first time we meet and especially when they're coming in going, what's my path and my purpose? And then, the guides will take us to a past life and they'll tell us this whole story about who they were and what their unfinished business is and then how that translates into your mission, your path, your purpose in this life. And usually when that comes through, like what your purpose is, it sometimes feels so off from what you think it's going to be. It feels so far away from who you are in this moment. And I never claim to be a predictor of the future. I like to say that spirit guides are always planting seeds for who you can be and for your truest, highest self. And they only bring through information that you're ready to hear, even if you don't think you're ready to hear it.
Yeah.
And so most people will kind of go, sometimes they'll even come out of a session with me where we've channeled their guides and go, well, that was a waste of money. Like they'll kind of go like, that had nothing to do with where I'm at. And like, I don't see that happening at all. That felt so far away from who I am right now. And then always, 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 I get these emails like 6 months to about a year later, sometimes a little more. And they go, I thought you were insane with what you were telling me. Like that felt so off base. And like now I'm doing that thing.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that your guides almost hold the candle. They kind of raise the bar for you and they kind of go,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
don't see this, but we know where you're headed. And they
Mhm.
kind of just like, they'll just plant that seed and then let you kind of make it happen on your own.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
if you don't, then you come back and do it in the next life. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, you're so right. I love how you put that, that they're just planting the seeds and doing the little, little things here and there, like leaving breadcrumbs. For me, this switch from what I was doing before to wanting to become a coach happened because I heard a voice, and I had never heard voices before that I can remember, but it was a clear voice. I was standing at my desk. I remember I got up from my desk and I just heard this voice tell me, "You're meant for more."
Mm.
And I knew, I don't know what it was and where that voice came from. I knew it wasn't inside of me. I knew it was like out here somewhere. And I just said to myself, okay, I'm ready. Show me the way.
Mm.
I show me the way. I don't know why, but I just knew that it was something else outside of me, a higher being, a spirit. I don't know. I knew it was some sort of a guide outside of me telling me it's time to move on from this. And that's when I started to kind of find that, that coaching program fell into my lap. It came up on Instagram, from Julia, who I had
Mhm.
already known. I had worked with her before as a VA. And so I'm like, oh, she's starting the coaching program. Well, let me take a look at that. And then it was, oh, everybody in the coaching program is meeting with Jessica. Let me do that. And so it was just following those little breadcrumbs that my spirit guides were leaving for me, basically, to get here.
Yeah, and that's also sort of a part of following your intuition, right? It's
Mhm.
not sometimes it is these voices that you hear, right? And this something that's outside
Mhm.
of yourself. And sometimes it's these opportunities that present themselves and you just having your eyes wide open and being aware of how
Mhm.
does it make me feel when this opportunity is presented? And if it's lighting me up, right? Actually leaning into that and jumping
Yes.
forward and kind of going, I don't know what it was, but I was so drawn to this, right? And that is you opening yourself up to your intuition and kind of going like, this was a full body yes, and I don't even know why. So I'm just gonna do it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. 100% agreed.
Yeah, that's amazing. So okay, so let's fast forward to the second session that you and I did. So this was actually post you taking my 12-week program.
Mhm.
Wasn't it? Or was it
No,
in
it's
the middle?
free.
Oh, it was before.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
see, this
Okay.
is why I don't
So
remember.
let's go there. So, okay, so I was taking Julia's program. I had the session with you, and where I thought I was going to gain clarity about the type of coaching offerings I was going to offer. I kind of came out more confused because now it's like, no, you're supposed to be using energy healing, and you're supposed to be, guiding women to start their own like soulful spiritual businesses. And I was like, okay, now I'm really confused. Like this is really off. So I just went forward with like what I was working with at the time. Like, okay, I'm just gonna help women. I'm just gonna coach women through like transitions, women in midlife. And And so I kind of stuck with that for a little bit, and I slowly started adding like energy work, and then right at the end of that coaching program with Juliet, you launched your 12-week program, your intuitive mastery program.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, that was like, my body was like, hell yes. It was like, you got to do this. And I was just so lit up. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And so then I took that program with you, and that was really, really beautiful. And it was really about kind of embracing that intuition, right? And learning to like listen to it and hear it and trust the messages that I have been receiving all along. And so that was really beautiful going through that program. Um, and it's just through the whole process, my business was morphing. It's just been morphing, it's the women that were coming to me for coaching. It was like, okay, most of them were coming to me because there was a business that they wanted to start. And I was like, it's so weird. Like, this is so weird. Like, this is not what I'm promoting myself as, but this is what these women were coming to me for. Of course, deeper work and inner work and coaching, but they're like, I just really need coaching as it relates to my business. So then it kind of started moving in that direction anyways,
Mhm.
naturally.
Mhm.
And then somewhere around like this past September, I just got this intuitive hit of like, you need to do like a 12-week coaching program for business, like to help women start their soul-based, like a soul heart-centered spiritual business. And it just felt like such a hell yes. I don't know. I just got this download. I didn't hear a voice or anything. It was just like whoop. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I need to do this. I need to do this. I want to do this. Should I do this? It was like one of these things that was like, okay. And then I thought, okay, I think I'm gonna do this. And then I had my second session with you, right around the time that these thoughts were going through my head. And that's exactly what you told me I needed to do. You told me I needed to be, well, or my guides told me through you that
Mhm.
I need to be doing a business group coaching program. And I was like, oh my gosh, this was them, this was them giving me this download a few weeks ago. And so it was just confirmation, really, for you to
Mhm.
tell me that this is what I needed to do. And really, it was kind of a continuation from what you told me the first session. You had told me in the first session, you're going to be helping women with their businesses, and you're going to be helping them with their business plans. And this is all going to come down through you, in a download, and how they're going to, their offerings and their business plans. And so it was just a confirmation again, like, okay, yeah, group coaching program, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just had this thought. So it was really just a confirmation. And if that wasn't enough, it's interesting, right? Right after that, I went to this like business event with this organization that I'm a part of. And I know people there, and a couple of people that I met with, a friend of mine who was an intuitive also, and she's a coach. We were talking and about business and blah blah blah, and she knows me from the podcast production VA side because I
Mhm.
helped her launch her podcast. But she knows that I was also moving into this coaching side, and we're in conversation. And she says out of nowhere, "Have you thought about doing a group coaching program?" I was like, "Thank you for the confirmation." And I had to end that conversation because I was like, "Oh, I have this, appointment with another friend who is an astrologer. Oh, I have an appointment with her, and she was doing, like, these, kinda like your 2025, not prediction, but, like, kind of a 2025 forecast. She was doing, like, these free 15-minute, like, sessions. I'm like, "Oh, I made an appointment with Jasmine, so I gotta go." And so I sat down with her. She pulls up my birth chart and all that. She's like, "Yeah, group coaching program for business, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Oh my god. If this is not my spirit guides telling me, knocking me across the head to like, girl, do it already, I don't know what is." So here I am. Here I am building this 12-week group coaching program that I'm planning to start in February. So that's where we're at.
That's right. You're doing the thing. Thank
I'm
God.
doing this thing, and it feels just so exciting and so right. I started like writing out all the content and, for like the first 4 weeks, and it just was, I just wanted to cry. It just felt like, gosh, I wish this is what I had when I started my business. And it's what I'm doing with that is like kind of bringing like in what I call it the divine feminine. Like the first 6 weeks, it's all kind of like channeling and creating and doing it from a place of, we're calling in our spirit guides to like do automatic writing and to build the content and find their soul, their passion and their soul path and purpose and building the business from that. And then the second half is bringing in that divine masculine energy that we usually just work with the masculine energy is how we've been brought up. But, we still need it. So bringing in to balance it out and to build the structure and the foundations and make it happen. So it's this, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a beautiful program and I'm really, really excited. And it's
Oh,
all because of really the guidance that you've helped me with. So,
oh, I can't take any credit for that. That was
I think
all you. That was
you've
all you.
encouraged me to trust my intuition when I was highly doubting it. So it was really encouragement from you. So, yeah, thank you.
This is so beautiful. And I want to highlight one thing about your story, which is just, I think I need our listeners to hear this is that a lot of the times we doubt ourselves, right? We doubt the intuitive download. Did we hear that? Where did this idea come from? And then usually when it comes in, even if we're excited by it initially, we come up with all of the logical reasons why we can't do it right now, or it's not going to work, or, yeah, it's not going to make me money, or whatever it is. Like the fear comes in. And the thing that about your story that is so fun is that spirit guides are so relentless.
Yes. Yes, they
They
are.
will not stop, right?
Right.
Till
That's
you
why I
do.
said that's why I said they're hitting me across the head. Like we've dropped enough breadcrumbs. Like now we're gonna like if four people telling you to do this is not enough, like girl, like
Right?
go back to bed, Yes,
Yeah.
they are relentless. Yes, they
Yeah.
are.
And they're really like it's just going to keep coming up and it's going to keep
Mhm,
coming into your field and more people are going to mention things to you and then if
mhm.
you don't listen to that then sometimes your circumstances shift and if you really don't listen the rug can get pulled out from under you, right? Because your guides that's their only job. It's to get you in alignment, to help you fulfill the mission that you agreed upon before you came down here that this is what you were going to do in this lifetime and boy golly are they going to make sure that you make that happen,
Yes,
right? And
yes.
so I just love that about, and this is also something that I really see, especially with clients who I've seen more than once, as we work together, often then your intuition starts to grow.
Mhm, mhm.
And then by the next, the second or the third time that I've seen you, everything that your guides are telling you is something you already knew. It's something you already heard. And then all I'm doing is confirming for
Yes,
you. Right.
yes.
And that is such a beautiful, like, testament to the spiritual growth that you go on once you start connecting with your guides is that then everything that the spiritual medium tells you, like, you already knew. Right. And soon you don't need me, which is the best part. And that's what I hope for all of my clients is that eventually they don't need me because they're just listening to those downloads and letting them come through and trusting them and actually following through. And you really, really took that, in your hands and are making it happen, which is so beautiful. And the last thing I really want to highlight here is that, first of all, I know this coaching program is going to do so well because you coached me through starting this podcast. I could not have done it without you. And here we are a year later into this podcast. And I had tried and failed doing two other podcasts before this one. I don't know if I told you that. I think I may have,
I
but
think I do that, yeah.
yeah. And that was before I knew that I was going to be doing this. And so one was like a children's storybook out loud one, and another one was about intuition. But um, I just couldn't figure out like how to get it going. And you're the one who really kind of walked me through the process to really, that divine masculine, there's a place for it, right? And for me, someone who really does often like to sit in the feminine receiving place, I'm a channeler, right? I just want to sit here and let the guides pour into me. but sometimes we do need the tangible, the practical, the steps forward. And it's always sort of this beautiful move back and forth. Like we take a moment and we receive the downloads and then we move them into action. And I think that that's really what your program's going to embody is doing one and then the other and back and forth and back and forth. And so I'm so, so, so excited for the women who are going to sign up for this, that are going to join you, because boy, are they going to be just taking off once they work with you.
Thank you. I'm excited too. I'm excited for the women that are going to come into the program, and I'm excited to see what they're going to create and how they're going to share their gifts
Yeah.
further. That's what brings me joy, and that's what I love about like podcasting is helping women's voices and messages be heard. And that's what's always lit me up about podcasting. It's like sharing your message. It's so beautiful. Like how many women, how many people's lives you're touching with your message. And it's for me to be able to help people bring that to life and make that happen. That's the part of what I don't want to say what I was doing, because I still have that business. I'm still doing that. That's what I love about that. But now it's kind of the same thing, but a little different, It's helping now women, you know, share those gifts on a grander scale, not just their voice, but like share those gifts and what they're here to do on a grander scale. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and you're gonna help channel that through for them too, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's
And
what's
I
exciting.
do yeah, and I do wanna kind of zoom in because this is a podcast all about developing your intuition, so I would love to sort of zoom in a little bit on your intuitive practice, and what does that look like for you? How do your intuitive downloads come in? Would you say that you have a particular clair that you sort of lean towards that's stronger for you? What does it look like now? What does your practice look like when you're wanting to call in your guides? Yeah, what does that look like for you?
Mhm. Yeah. So, okay. So when I'm trying to call in my guides, or really my clients' guides, I do the deep breathing. I ground myself. Sometimes grounding is just a walk, and sometimes I'm finding lately I need a little bit more. So I do kind of put myself through meditation of grounding and like envisioning myself and my roots, grounding into Mother Earth and feeling like she's got me, like Mother Earth's got me, like she's holding me, and then feeling that energy come back up. So I need a little bit more of that lately, I feel. But sometimes just taking a deep breath and just being in meditation is enough. And then I call in the spirit guides the way that you've taught us and you've shared on the podcast as well. Call in the spirit guides, and they call in protection. Um, and so usually for me, my claircognizant. Um, Occasionally, I see things. Very, very rarely, I'll see something. I don't really know what they mean yet. I'm starting to see a little bit more. Sometimes I hear something like the one time that I was told you're meant for more. But mainly it's claircognizant. I just know. I
Mhm.
just know. I just know that the spirits showed up, the spirit guides show up. I just know that there's a couple people there. I don't really know what they look like. Sometimes I do. I can never really see their faces. Sometimes I could see the hair outline, how long it is or whatever. I can tell if they're man or woman. Sometimes I see like their dresses, but very, very rarely. I don't see color usually. Although lately I've been starting to see a little bit of color. So I think it's also developing. And sometimes when I'm just in meditation, just calling in my spirit guides just to connect and to hear what I need to hear. I ask them to also like strengthen like my other clairs as well to just kind of help me, you know, be more well-rounded, if you will.
Yeah. And when I was going through my intuitive development journey, that's exactly what I did as well. At first, I also couldn't see the faces and I would see maybe outlines and not details. And then I just kept asking the guides every time I could feel that they were there, please turn up the volume, please strengthen and reactivate my seeing and my hearing because I want it to be clearer. So I kept saying, like, let me see you, let me hear you, turn up the volume and make it clearer. So just keep asking that for
Oh,
sure.
I love that. Thank you for that
Yeah,
tip. Yes, that's a
yeah.
great one.
And I do love and I do always argue, like, I somebody made a comment to me that I always say I argue on this on this podcast. So I'm trying not to say argue, but but I do always like to advocate that claircognizance is one of the most powerful intuitive abilities. I mean, to just have this knowing that, like, I don't know how I know this, but I just know it, and then it always plays out. I mean, to me, that's incredible, right? Even that story that you told about, I mean, it's not the most ideal information to be getting about people, having
Yeah.
miscarriages, but the fact that you knew without a shadow of a doubt, right? It's a powerful thing to be
Yeah.
dropping into your system,
Yeah,
right?
that was really powerful, and it was beautiful knowing that I knew I didn't like what the information that I was receiving, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, in one occasion, my mom said, "Oh, your cousin lost a baby." I said, "I know." She goes, "How do you know?" "It just
Mhm.
happened last night." I said, "I think I talked to her." I don't know how I knew, but I just knew. So it's like that. It's like
Mhm.
it's just this knowing, and it's beautiful when you start trusting it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the key. That's always the key, right? Is to actually trust it and not kind of talk yourself out of it or tell yourself that you're crazy or you must have just guessed wrong or whatever it is. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
and clear cognizance really can translate into sort of the channeling that where a guide will actually speak through you and like use you as the microphone or the mouthpiece. And this is where we see, people like Esther Hicks, who has Abraham Hicks talking through her, right? That's clear cognizance. It's like it's just coming into your body and like they're taking over, right? And so it starts as just a knowing, but eventually it becomes a stream of consciousness, speaking that can come right out of you. And so I'm excited as you sort of grow your gifts. Are you noticing that starting to come through at all as you're channeling for people?
That has happened, that has happened a few times where I just start talking and saying what's coming through, and it's almost as if for me, I feel like the more I say it out loud, the more I speak it, the more it keeps coming. And so I feel like I have experienced that where I just start like talking and talking and talking and talking, and then all of a sudden, whoop, oh, I don't know where that came from. It's just it's happened with clients. It's like, okay, that's it. It's done. It stops, but it like comes through and through. And sometimes when like I get the messages and I don't say it and I'm trying to kind of, "Oh, what are you trying to say? Like, what does this mean?" If I just start saying it out loud, it kind of starts coming more. It's like they're like, "Oh," and I almost feel like, "Okay, she got it. Let's keep giving her more information." That's how I feel about it. But I feel like even when I'm just channeling for myself, I feel like I have to say it out loud. Oh, like I say the word out loud and then it keeps coming. Oh, okay, so this and then so that, so that. So are you telling me this? And then it just and so I'm saying it out loud and I'm trying to write it. So sometimes I start to like record it because I can't write it fast enough and like be paying attention to what they're saying. So sometimes I'll just record like, okay, what are you trying to tell me? Okay. And so just start like recording myself and what they're telling me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's honestly what I would recommend for anybody who has a sense that they're claircognizant. If you ask a question and you're like, you're just waiting for an answer and it feels like nothing, you have to just start talking, right? And like, even if the first thing you say is like, I have no idea what to do about this, right?
Mhm.
Eventually it just comes out and then you just like, it's like word vomit, right? You just can't
Mhm.
stop. And when it's done,
Mhm.
it's done. And you're like, I have
Yes.
nothing else to say about it.
Yes, yes, and I do this, on my walks a lot of times. I'll go on a walk and I'll be like, "Okay, spirit guides, come on, let's go. Let's go on a walk," and then I'll just start asking and I'll start doing it out loud, and I notice that people look at me because 'cause I'm talking to myself.
Yeah.
I'm walking, but not really, because I got my spirit guides with me, we're having this conversation, and we're talking, and I'm asking them, and I'm, like, solving what I need in that moment, like, asking them questions, "What do I do about this?" And, "Okay, so should I do that?" And blah, 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 and, and I'm talking it out loud, and so sometimes I'm like, "Okay, let me go out when there's not a lot of people outside, because 'cause I'm just, like, having this conversation with my spirit guides."
Right? Well, thank God for the invention of earbuds. Now it looks like everybody's talking to themselves,
I
so
know,
less likely to be
exactly.
judged these days.
Yeah, yeah, a little bit less, yeah,
Yeah.
true.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. So I have one last question for you, which is For the person who is just starting out,
Mhm.
who maybe thinks they have a little something, like who is maybe where you were several years ago, and they kind of go, I think there's something more, right? But I don't know where to start or where to begin. What would you recommend? How do you think that what's a good first step? What do you think would be helpful as
Mhm.
they're starting to seek?
Yeah, for me, what I say is start to follow those little breadcrumbs. Whatever you see or hear that you feel like makes you feel a little bit excited, look into that. Go look into that. If like for me, I felt like okay, I saw that Julia's program popped up, on my Instagram, and I was like, oh, I was like, okay, let me go sign up for that because I felt that little bit of excitement, and so when your program came up, I was like, it's like it's I follow that excitement. I almost allow myself to be a little girl again, to be a child again. It's those little things that make me excited that bring joy, follow those little breadcrumbs because I feel that that is our soul talking to us and telling us this is where you're supposed to go and do.
Mhm.
So kind of almost, yeah, like being childlike, like exploring those little moments of excitement, that the things that bring you joy, and some of this isn't always going to be joy, right? Like we're gonna have to do some work, to put my business program together. It's work. I have to put in the hours, but the product is so joyful, so just that's what I say is follow those little breadcrumbs of joy that you feel along the way. Anything that feels like remotely interesting, whether it's something that you saw um while scrolling, or a book that you saw that looked really interesting. I feel that they're all breadcrumbs that our guides are leaving for us to, like, okay, maybe she'll look at the book. Okay, maybe she'll look at this, or maybe she'll talk to this person and they will tell them about this thing. And they're all breadcrumbs. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's so beautiful, and I love that. It's really I think I wanna even add, like, the breadcrumbs of excitement as the way you put it, because that
mhm,
really is, like, it should be, in a lot of cases, a joyful or exciting process, or can be if you allow it to be, and in addition to that, there's really, like, this feeling of you get in flow when you follow
mhm,
your excitement, right?
yes.
And that is my word for this year. Like as I'm calling in my big goals for 2025, I'm like my mantra is like let it be easy, let it be fun, let it be in flow. And if you keep leaning into that and not make it so much work, even when it comes to developing your intuition, right? Like
Mhm.
it has to feel fun.
100%. That I think is the key. And when it feels fun, that's what's meant for us, is the way that I see it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then, so many people benefit on the other side of it. So don't stop yourself, right? Which is
yeah.
so beautiful. Well, this has been so amazing, Sonia. I'm so excited for everything that you have in the works. And I really want, if anybody wants to reach out to you, where can our audience members find you? How can they learn more about your program? Yeah,
Oh,
tell us
thank
all the things.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah, my program, you can go to sonia-flores.com/soul business. So that it talks about what's going on with the program. I'm on Instagram as Modern Latina in Midlife. That's the name of my podcast. I'm the Modern Latina, and I like to talk about just all the things that really interest me, whether it's business or spiritual. That's where I'm having all the conversations of all, really my growth experience, things that I'm going through, and sharing, about my sessions, sharing about my programs and what I'm doing. And so that's been fun. Yeah. And if you want to just email me, sonia@sonia-flores.com.
Amazing. Well, definitely go and check her out and all of the beautiful offerings she has. Honestly, this business wouldn't have happened without the coaching from you. So
Oh, thank
the feeling
you.
of adoration is definitely mutual. And so I'm just so excited for everybody to go and check out your stuff. The links, of course, will be in the show notes because you'll be putting them there.
Thank you.
Thank you. And otherwise, is there any last thing that I didn't get to ask you that you would like to share with our audience before we sort of sign off for today?
Um, I guess what's coming to me right now is, you are worth following your soul path. You are worth following the breadcrumbs of joy. You are worth it. To do it for yourself, it will benefit everybody around you, but do it for yourself.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And what a beautiful way to end it. Thank you so much, Sonia.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, amigas. Thank you so much for sticking around, for listening to my story. I hope that this has encouraged you and inspired you to start paying attention to those nudges and just start taking that one next step. I'm going to do another episode later on how to start trusting those those hints, those messages, those intuitions. But for now, I hope that this inspires you to take the next step. And if you need a little bit of help in getting more in touch with what your spirit guides are trying to tell you, if you want to commune with them and co-create with them and communicate with them, bring them in, I invite you to book a session with me. I offer readings of intuitive guidance where we call in your spirit guides and your whole spirit team. And for 60 minutes, you can ask anything you want, whether it's related to your business, your career, your relationships, your any area of your life. So I encourage you to do that. You can go to sonia-flores.com to book a session there, an intuitive guidance reading, or check out the link in the show notes and you can book a session there. Thank you so much for being here. Hasta la próxima.